Charles Edwards can't tell his own story, so I'm here today to tell it for him. I've changed his last name for patient confidentiality, but the rest of the details are all accurate. He was an attorney. He was working late one night and an armed robber stopped him as he left the building, shot him, and left him for dead. Fortunately, someone took him to the hospital, where multiple blood transfusions and the skill of the doctors saved him. However, that was just the start of his troubles. One of the pints of blood he received had the deadly virus hepatitis C, and that virus ate away at his liver to the point that his doctor finally decided that his only possibility for life was a new one. And so while he was absorbing the bad news that he would need a liver transplant, he was dealt a second blow. The insurance company wasn't going to cover the transplant for at least a year. Now, HMOs cannot have pre-existing waiting periods, but they had got around that by saying that it wasn't a pre-existing waiting period, it was a transplant waiting period. And so Charles Edwards' long wait began. Life for the Edwards family became a surreal game of beat the clock. Could he survive until the one-year waiting period was over? He hung on almost the full year, but in September there was no doubt he was dying. But the insurance company still said no, and the doctor didn't make a referral to my hospital. So the family finally took things into their own hands and contacted our hospital directly, and that's when I got involved. When I contacted the insurance company, I questioned the fact that they had a one-year waiting period for an HMO policy, and I told them I was going to contact the Texas Department of Insurance. She said that sending the patient 2 weeks before his waiting period was over would set a precedent for other patients, so they would no longer have to wait the one-year waiting period for a transplant. At that point, I did contact the Texas Department of Insurance. I contacted the wife again, and she expressed her fear that the doctor was angry with them because he was, after all, an employee of the HMO, and he had apparently expressed some irritation that they had contacted us directly. There were a few weeks left, and the family waited on pins and needles. But 2 days later, Mr. Edwards took a turn for the worse and was admitted to the HMO hospital's ICU, where everything was done for him short of a transplant. He never even made it to a transplant hospital. 3 days after that, he died at age 49. I filed a written complaint against the HMO, and I received the answer after Mr. Edwards' death, and that was that the HMO should never have had a waiting period for transplants, and it would be removed for any other patients covered by the plan. But it was too late for Mr. Edwards. The HM in HMO stands for health maintenance. Mr. Edwards never had a shot. There was no medical reason to deny the transplant for the first year. It was simply a financial reason. On May 30, 1996, Dr. Linda Pino testified before the U.S. Congress to bring to light a common insurance practice of giving bonuses and financial incentives to the very people that are making the decision as to whether a service is medically necessary or not. A higher percentage of denials led to a higher bonus. The insurance companies have not got our best interest at heart. A recent Harvard study shows that 45,000 people a year die simply because they don't have insurance and can't get the care they need. When I hear people saying, people get care in the emergency room. Yes, they get some care in the emergency room, but they don't get transplants. They don't get cancer treatment. They don't get radiation or chemotherapy. They don't get back surgery. They don't get most of the health care that people need. And I met some of those people. So the uninsured are not getting the care they need. But as Mr. Edwards' case shows, the insured aren't getting it either. All these years later, I have still not forgotten Charles Edwards and his widow Linda. I am fighting for health care reform because I met some of the people that died just because the insurance company made the wrong decision, or that died because they simply didn't have any coverage. Health care reform for me is pro-life, and it's consistent with the very best of American values.